11 rankings, 11 opinions, one question. Who actually did their homework? Well, Jackson and I are going to tell you who did and who didn't on this episode of Locked On West Virginia.
You are Locked On West Virginia, your daily podcast on the West Virginia Mountaineers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, guys? Welcome back in. My name is Mountaineer Paul. I am your host here, and welcome back into Locked On West Virginia, where we're talking Mountaineer football again today, obviously, whereas we're trying to make it through to the offseason. Hopefully you and yours are having a great time, as I know I am. Hopefully you are. And we're going to dive straight into this. Thank you for making Locked On West Virginia your first listen and for being a part of the Locked On Podcast Network. We're talking about your team, the Mountaineers, every single day. Of course, the cat knocked that over immediately. I'm going to start locking them up before the show. Okay, on today's show, guys, we're going to be talking about quite a bit, right? There's a lot of opinions out there about West Virginia this offseason, and I wanted to get some positivity for once, is what I wanted to do. And then I went to go looking, and I'm like, man, like there's not very much positive to talk about. So Jackson and I came up with the idea for us to go back to back with our pistols. This is kind of a funny way to we're going to shoot holes in some of these arguments. Starsky and Hutch, yeah, sure, yeah. We're definitely not the what's the female version of that? From the 70s, whatever it's
Charlie's Angels.
Charlie's Angels, yeah. We're definitely not Charlie's Angels. Good Lord, Jackson.
I was like, is that like a sailorman person? I was like, nope, that's not sailorman. I forget. They have a different hand signal. My bad.
All right, so that's what we're going to be getting into. We're going to go kind of publication by publication. I went and I've extracted out. I spent a couple hours on this. I extracted out what each publication said. I bought a couple of these too, so I was able to get like Phil Steele and Athlon. And so, you got to spend money to make money, right, Jackson? So
yeah,
that's what we did here. We went and found some of these. So, all right, so the national media has an opinion on West Virginia. And what we're doing, obviously, is I don't think many people have done this. So I tracked down every major preseason prediction that I could find. Phil Steele, Athlon, CBS Sports, Sporting News, Brett McMurphy's on 3 Report. The SP Plus is Bill Connolly. ESPN has their FPI ranking. The Big 12 beat writers just put something out today, which gave me the idea for this. They did a Big 12 media poll today that included all the Big 12 writers, all picking people, USA Today, etc. And after even reading every article, every prediction, and every explanation, I kind of noticed that they all come to the same conclusion, Jackson. Did you notice that?
Yeah, I mean, it's like they copied each other's rankings, but forgot to copy each other's reasonings. Because, I mean, like, we see CBS has West Virginia 13th. Sporting News has them at 13th. The Big 12 beat.
We're going to go one by one. Sorry, don't mean to cut you off. I don't want to give them all away yet. But yes, to me, it just feels like, well, what did that other poll say? I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe everybody feels this way. But some of their arguments, like if you read what they say, kind of falls apart. So we're going to put everything on – every prediction's going on trial, Jackson. So let's start with the verdict before the evidence and start with some of the rankings. Phil Steele has West Virginia at 7, which I thought was interesting. Absolutely fair, obviously. You know what, Jackson, since we already gave a couple away, we'll just go ahead and do all the rankings, and then we'll go one by one. If you want to go ahead and run them off, you can.
All right. Yeah, because like you said, Phil Steele had him at 7th. Athlon Sports has West Virginia at 10th. CBS has him at 13th. Sporting News has him at 13th. The Big 12 beat writers. Yeah, I mean, like the Big 12 beat writers have him at 13th. USA Today has him at 14th. Brett McMurphy has him at 14th. The SP Plus rankings have them at 15th, and the FPI rankings of ESPN have them at 15th. So that's an average of 12 for the Mountaineers.
Right. Did you do that in your computer brain? So 9 of the 11 major projections here have West Virginia finishing in the bottom 4 of the Big 12. Only 2 of these publications believe this is a top 10 football team in the Big 12. And so you say that average is 12. So before a single snap has been played, the national verdict is basically unanimous that West Virginia should be around 12th in the league. The rankings are similar, but they're, like you said, the reasons each publication gave was so wild. So we're going to get into that because I wanted to know why anyways. And so I kind of went digging for that. Let's go with Athlon. Prediction 10th. Their argument is pretty straightforward. Mike Hawkins Jr. changes the offense. Cam Cook changes the offense. Year 2 under Rich Rod matters, but the offensive line needs to improve. They don't think it will. The defense replaces every returning starter, and they allowed over 36 points per Big 12 game last year. So their conclusion is it a bowl team? Probably. My takeaway is this is probably one of the more balanced evaluations, Jackson. I mean, at least they're acknowledging some of the upside with Cam Cook and Mike Hawkins Jr. But I'm going to tell you what's holding them back. They may not have confidence in the offensive line, but we do. As a matter of fact, we have at least 8 that we can go with. At least 8 that we can go with. I think there's probably 10 in there that they can play with, if not maybe 1 or 2 more even. So the offensive line is deep and talented, I think. And guys like Kevin Brown, may or may not play. But if he doesn't, that says a lot about this offensive line, as I said many times. What is your takeaway from the Athlon ranking?
They like Michael Hawkins and Cam Cook, obviously, but they don't like the defensive line or the defense turnover. But I will say, their argument actually makes sense because they've acknowledged the positives and acknowledged the negatives, but they end up saying that West Virginia probably lands at 6 wins at the very least.
Which is a very fair – it's fair.
Yeah.
Because I've said all year, if West Virginia finished with 7 wins, I wouldn't be shocked, right? But I wouldn't be shocked if they finished with 9 or 10 either. It's funny how the difference between the 2 games can make that big of a difference. 7 wins is kind of a letdown. 9 wins is kind of exciting. So it's kind of crazy, right? Phil Steele, this is the highest projection you're going to find outside of mine, probably. Phil Steele clearly believes that last season doesn't accurately represent this team. The portal additions, the roster upgrades, the year 2 continuity with Rich Rod, returning offensive firepower along with what they brought in. His argument is simple, Jackson, and you can go ahead and go from there.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, because he's not – because he believes that the portal matters. Year 2 of the Rich Rod era matters. Last year's record is not this year's roster. Continuity matters.
Continuity.
And, yeah, there you go, the continuity. And he's not saying – he's basically telling people this is not a 4-8 team anymore. This is a completely different roster. This is somebody that's going to have a say in who gets in the Big 12 title this year.
Interesting to me that he would have us in 7th. I think he's basically saying upper half of the Big 12, which is very fair, obviously. We'll see. I think that's definitely a fair one. And I would probably agree with him if I were going to rank West Virginia. I would probably have him between that 7 to 6 range as well. So I would probably go 6, but I'll explain why at another time. We've got CBS Sports here too.
Ooh.
I think it's interesting here. They obviously have West Virginia rated pretty low. But they praise Cam Cook and Michael Hawkins, Jackson. They praise Scotty Fox. They have a lot to say, but then they were at his 13th. I mean, if the quarterback room improved, the running back room improved, the talent improved, why are we still near the bottom, Jackson?
You know, they spend half the article telling people why the roster got better, then rank them near the bottom anyway. I mean, they got them beating Kansas, Cincinnati, Tennessee, Martin, and Coastal. Everything else is just a loss. I mean, not impossible, but it assumes every toss-up game goes against West Virginia.
Right.
I mean, if you're going to predict 4 wins, you basically decided that every close game is going to break against the Mountaineers. I mean, you know, it's like they absolutely blitz Houston. I mean, one of the league's contenders last year. I mean, that's the contradiction right there. And honestly, they're explosive enough to blow out Houston, but they can't get the 5 wins. I don't understand that.
Right. Well, the talent improved. Why are we still near the bottom? They don't trust the offensive line. They don't trust the defense and the roster turnover. And I don't think that's a good argument. CBS game by game picks as well. Yet another CBS site. You know, we went over some of the games they picked against West Virginia. Coastal, UT Martin, Kansas, Cincinnati are the wins. The losses are to everybody else. Interesting there. And then you've got, you know, just the way that they are on these, you know, to me anyways, how are we supposed to finish 4-8 and buy this inconsistency that they're trying to sell us if college football is so unpredictable? Like that's so they're kind of contradicting themselves a little bit. But, you know, there is a massive gap between what I think this team can do and what they think that this team can do. And there's also a big gap between, you know, what I think they'll actually accomplish compared to this. So we'll move on. The SP Plus, this is a rough one here. It's just the eye test. It's just the numbers. It's your returning production, your historical efficiency, your roster continuity, Jackson. Bill Connolly's SP Plus, not kind of the Mountaineers.
Yeah, I mean, like they're looking at the returning production, the historical efficiency, the roster data, but they're not caring about the leadership, the momentum, the portal chemistry, the culture, Rich Rod coming back. And, you know, it's just really limited from SP Plus. I mean, they're not really watching practice. They're just reading spreadsheets.
Right. The ESPN FPI has the same result, same philosophy. It's all about returning production and metrics and data and blah, blah, blah. So there's no room for context there. Sporting News, we know they have us 13th. What's interesting to me here, Jackson, is they argue that West Virginia lacks talents. Not they know they don't argue that we lack any talent at all.
Yeah. I mean, they're not arguing that at all.
So it's about the roster continuity.
They've got the exact same blind spot. They can't measure whether Rich Rod's completely changed the culture. That's the thing with them. Right.
And nobody, you know, it's funny how nobody questions the talent on the roster. They question the continuity on the roster. They question the offensive line development and the defensive turnover again. So I think the big thing, you know, and we'll get to this at the end, but there's one big thing that everybody keeps missing, right? Everybody. Brett McMurphy, 14th, another low-tier projection, another publication that's skeptical because of the turnover, and another voice that and vote that kind of reinforces the growing national consensus that the offensive line hasn't been good, right? So it's pretty clear to me what's happening, right? The real divide here is we'll go to the break, we'll come back out, and we'll talk about it. What are people missing? Well, kind of I think you guys have kind of locked onto that. We'll talk about it. Yeah. All right, our friends from Indeed saying hello on this one, y'all. And why wouldn't they? As we all know, it's time for a great offer from Indeed sponsored jobs. And when workplace chaos hits and you need the right hire, Indeed sponsored jobs helps connect employers with candidates who match specific needs, like skills, certifications, and location. So less time gets spent searching and more time spent interviewing and finding the right fit. People are finding quality hires on Indeed right now. In the minute I've been talking to you, companies like yours have made 27 hires on Indeed, according to Indeed data worldwide. Usually the biggest difference isn't someone doing more work. It's having somebody who knows what exactly needs to happen and helps everything run smoother. So one great addition can have a ripple effect on everyone around them. And when you find someone that brings the right skills, attitude, and experience, it makes the entire group better. That's why finding qualified candidates matters so much. And my tools like Indeed sponsored jobs help make that process easier. So if you want to spend less time searching and more time actually interviewing candidates who check all the boxes, that's less stress, less time, more results. You need the right person to cut through the chaos. This is a job for Indeed sponsored jobs. Listeners of this show are going to get $75 sponsored job credit to help get your job the premium status it deserves at Indeed.com/podcast. That's right. Listeners of this show are going to get $75 sponsored job credit to help get your job the premium status it deserves. Just go to Indeed.com/podcast now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on Locked On West Virginia. Indeed.com/podcast with the terms and conditions apply. You need a hire. This is a job for Indeed sponsored jobs. All right, back in segment 2. I don't have a water due here with me, Jackson, unfortunately, but you can go ahead and drink on yours. Appreciate y'all for being here. Like I said, man, it's been interesting going over this stuff. You know, the divide, right? Where is it? I was trying to figure that out. Why are people projecting us to be so low? Because there are higher projections out there with Phil Steele and Athlon, who kind of believe in the portal additions a little more, and Rich Rodriguez and Hawkins and Cook in the year 2. And, you know, but the lower projections all say too much has changed, too many new faces, too much uncertainty. But the big thing I saw was the offensive line. A lot of people looking at our offensive line and questioning its development, Jackson. And I mean, we know from this offseason that offensive line is probably, I mean, how much better do we think it is? I mean, we've talked about it a million times.
It's way better than last year's.
Yeah.
Because it's much healthier.
I think this is just overcompensation on some people's part. Right. Overcompensation on some people's part, in my opinion, right? Like, they're basically saying, you know, last year's offensive line was so bad that they're having trouble thinking that this one can be much better. And I think that's going to be where, in my opinion anyways, the hay is going to be made is with that offensive line. And we've talked about it so many times at this point. We're going to continue to talk about it. I mean, it's just the truth. So Phil Steele, I think, you know, if I'm going to rank these guys, I'll give Phil Steele 5 stars. I think he had clear evidence. He had great reasoning. He does the most research. Whether he's right or wrong, I think his argument is consistent. Athlon was balanced too. I think they had at least the strengths and the concerns, like you said, Jackson. They had the positive and the negatives. CBS Sports had a lot of evidence in their article, but their logic was flawed as hell. You know, like they predict West Virginia can absolutely blitz Houston, while also predicting a 4-win season requires a pretty difficult leap in logic to me. The SV Plus is all computer model. I give it 0 stars. FPI, same thing, 0 stars. And all the others I give 0 stars. Anything that has this 13th, 14th, or 15th, you get 0 stars. So the biggest takeaway for me is, after reading all these predictions, Jackson, nobody thinks we lack any talent, really. If you read the articles, they don't question Cook or Hawkins or even Rich Rod in a lot of cases. They question the roster turnover and how can we get it all ready. 30-plus new pieces in the portal, 30-plus new pieces through high school. How can they come together in one offseason? And that's the entire debate. So I think for me, you know, we got these 11 major projections or predictions. Only 2 really believes West Virginia finishes inside the top 10 there, and the rest see a bottom 14. So, and then one of those outlets can say West Virginia is capable of blowing the doors off a contender. So where do I stand? Well, I mean, obviously, I don't think the media is underestimating West Virginia. I know they are. I think they're underestimating how quickly that we can build the team. Rich Rodriguez can do it. I mean, we've seen it with many teams last year with Willie Fritz. A bunch of teams were in this spot last year that had great years. So these projections I think they won't just be wrong. They're going to be receipts for West Virginia and bulletin board material.
Yeah, and like the higher rankings believe, the portal additions, QB, Cam Cook and Rich Rod year 2 jump, and the low rankings believe too much turnover, defense, offensive line unknowns. Disagreement's not talent, really. It's basically timing. And nobody's really arguing whether the Mountaineers have improved. They're arguing about whether it's happened fast enough.
Great points. One more quick break here, 6 seconds. We'll come back. We'll put a bow on this one here with Jackson Johnson. We'll be right back. All right. Guys, appreciate y'all for being here. At the end of the day, we can't always feed into all these off-season articles too much. I mean, I get it. They're basing a lot of their stuff off of what's on paper. There's a million teams across the country. You can't, I get it. You can't deep dive into every single one. But if you're going to do a ranking, I feel like it doesn't take much. Like, I do this all the time. If I'm previewing a team for West Virginia, it doesn't take long to find 3 or 4 articles to give you an idea of what that team's off season was like. And if you know how to use the tools that are at our disposal today, in today's 2026, you can get all those things filtered into a nice, neat spreadsheet for yourself to basically have right there to reference, right? It's not hard to do. I don't understand how these people that are doing some of these rankings can't get some of the bravado coming out of Morgantown, right? I mean, we heard Rich Rodriguez say at Big 12 Media Days, just like Neil Brown did. It wasn't as strongly as what Neil Brown said. Like Neil Brown said, listen, we won't be ranked this dead next to last in the Big 12 this year, whatever it was that year. Was it last or dead last? I can't remember. Next to last or dead last. But, Rich Rodriguez says we're going to be a lot better than people realize, a lot better. And, so they feel good about that. They've made their points publicly. They've talked about the offensive line being great publicly many times. And at this point, it's like, what are we waiting on? Well, we're kind of waiting on who wins the quarterback battle.
Mm-hmm.
And then that's going to tell us a lot. And then, how do these freshmen perform behind Cam Cook could be another big thing. I don't think there's that chance in hell that at least one of them isn't really good. But I suppose there's a possibility where maybe some would struggle behind him. Cam Cook is a guy that he's been such a workhorse last year, and even at TCU when they asked him to be, that you would think, man, this dude's got a chance to be just stupendous. So as far as carrying most of the weight of the offense on his shoulders from the running perspective. So, especially the beginning of the year, first 3 or 4 games, you should be able to lean on Cook pretty heavy while these freshmen get acclimated, and then it's off to the races. Defensively, I understand concerns there. There aren't as many knowns on the defensive side. Obviously you've got at least one guy at every part of the defense. You've got on defensive line, you've got at least 2 guys with McIntyre and Nate Gabriel. You've got Ben Cutter at linebacker, and obviously Ashton Woods is there. In the secondary, you've got Jameer Latimer, you've got Nick Taylor. I think people forgetting all this. Like, you potentially have at least six players on defense that have played a lot of ball and were going to be starters or second teamer, one of the two. Gabriel McIntyre starters, Cutter's a starter, Nick Taylor's probably a first or second teamer, Jameer Latimer's a starter, and he's played in this defense in Zach Alley, obviously, 2 years ago. So I consider him a returner, right? I think that's fair. So there's more on, and Ashton Woods obviously could end up being a starter at some point. But he's probably second team for now, I'm guessing. I'm not 100% sure on him. But, you know, there's more here than people realize, man. And that's just going to be for them to find out. Now, obviously, that doesn't mean a whole lot if you don't get the rest of the guys to gel around them. And there are still a lot of pieces. I mean, you know, if Ben's playing in the middle, you've still got to have a linebacker on either side of him, or at least one linebacker with him, depending on what package you're running. You've got to have, you know, at least two other defensive linemen or defensive ends with Gabriel McIntyre. I get that too. You know, and you've got to have corners, and there's a lot that has to go right, but it's not just a full all 11 players are new either. What do you think, Jackson? Any other thoughts?
Yeah, and I will say, you know, when I looked at the preseason predictions, you know, the ones I liked the best were from Phil Steele and Athlon's, because honestly, when Phil Steele was looking at West Virginia, he was basically putting real weight into the roster construction. And, you know, with Locked On, it was definitely the most balanced article of the bunch. Whereas, like, CBS had some good reporting, but a weird conclusion. But, like, the SP Plus and the FPI, I really had some questions about them. I mean, nobody's saying West Virginia is lacking talent. Nobody's questioning Cam Cook, Michael Hawkins, or Rich Rod. You know, that's what the entire preseason comes down to. Not whether West Virginia got better, but whether they got better fast enough in 2026.
Right. I appreciate you guys for being here. Thank you so much for all your support and everything. You guys showed up really late last night, and that video is doing really well today. If you want to go check out the Texas Tech video from last night, it's doing really well, where we talked about potential ACC for Texas Tech and what's that mean for West Virginia if that's on the table. Why would Tech be the team floated around and not West Virginia? We'll talk about that obviously more as we go along. Make sure you like and subscribe if you're new here. Obviously, like, and if you're not new here, and we'll see you guys here later. The Locked On Every Dare Club is something we would love for you to check out. It's at lockedonwestvirginia.supercast.com. It costs $5, I think, right now. We're changing some of that stuff. For the future, I'm trying to wait and see what happens with that and when. But, you know, there is certainly a lot to it. And I appreciate your time, like I said, guys. Other than that, thank you for making this your first listen and for being a part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where we love talking about your team, the Mountaineers, every single day. We're going to go ahead and go. And, Jackson, you can take us out.
I love for everybody just roll damn tide. The Mountaineer Paul and friends here in Morgantown, West Virginia, want you to never, ever to forget to cue those country roads. Go Mountaineers!